Hello guys, how are you?
I'm Hardeep Singh. Welcome back to your own YouTube channel. IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test, and speaking, you got guesswork. Please guys participate in everyday listening and reading practice test to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. Please hit the like and subscribe button. Press the bell icon for the upcoming notifications. Don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams.
Part 1. You will hear a man having an interview for a job in a hotel. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. Now listen and answer questions 1 to 4.
Good morning, Mr. Peters. Please come in and have a seat.
Thank you.
My name's Gloria McKell. I'm the personnel manager here. Now, before we start the job interview, I just need to get a couple of details from you.
Sure.
Now, first of all, I'd just like to confirm I have the correct details. Your name is George Peters, isn't it?
Yes.
And your contact phone number is 0438 637 935?
That's right.
The man's phone number is 0438 637 935. So 0438 637 935 has been written next to the example on the question paper. Now continue with questions 1 to 4.
We have vacancies for a couple of positions in our hotel at the moment. Which position are you interested in applying for?
Room service.
Room service, right. Now, I'd like to find out a little about your employment background. Have you worked in a hotel before, or have you been employed in any capacity in the hospitality industry?
I've never actually worked in a hotel, but I've been a waiter in a couple of different places.
Oh, good. I'm sure that experience will come in handy.
Also, at the moment, I'm doing a course.
Oh, what are you doing?
I'm studying tourism management. I'm in the second year of a 3-year course.
That's good to hear. Oh, by the way, we have quite a few international guests staying here. Do you speak any foreign languages?
I did French at high school, and I'm studying Korean as part of my diploma course.
And how well do you speak those languages?
Well, I can have a simple conversation in French, but my Korean's still fairly basic, though I think it'd come in handy with room service.
Good.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Well, I've asked you a number of questions. Now, I wonder if there's anything you'd like to know about the position or about the hotel.
Could you tell me what the duties are of doing room service? I mean, I've got a vague idea, but it'd be good to know exactly what it involves.
Yes, of course. In fact, your duties would not be limited to room service. There are a few extra things that are now part of the job you're applying for. For instance, the porter used to carry guests' bags to their rooms, but his position has been abolished, and that would now be your responsibility. Unlike a waiter, you don't take their orders for food. The kitchen staff does that by phone.
Right.
If you're on afternoon shift, you also have to take the afternoon newspapers to the guests who've ordered them. But if you're on the morning shift, it's done by the concierge. You're qualified to serve alcohol, aren't you?
Yes.
Good, because on evening shifts you may have to serve in the hotel bar. What else? If a guest calls to say there's a problem with some of the equipment in the room, if it's something simple like one of the light bulbs is blown, then you replace it. But if it's something more complex, say if the TV isn't working, you leave that to the technical staff.
I see.
Oh no, sorry. There's been a change in that. In fact, now all electrical work has to be done by the technical staff. It's an occupational health and safety issue.
Better to be safe than sorry, I suppose.
Yes. You don't have to do any of the cleaning, though you do have to remove any dirty plates the guests have used in their rooms. The cleaners are the ones who make sure the fridges have the right amount of drinks and snacks in them. There are a few other duties, but basically room service plays an important role in maintaining guest satisfaction, and so a friendly attitude and efficiency are what's required.
Oh, that goes without saying. And could I ask about the pay and conditions?
Of course. The pay is $20 per hour and $25 per hour between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m, as well as on Sundays.
Right. And what's provided by the hotel? For instance, I suppose there's a uniform to wear?
Yes, the hotel provides the jacket and trousers. However, you'd be responsible for doing your own laundry.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah. What about transport? Like, if we finish a shift around midnight, does the hotel pay for taxi fares to get back home?
We used to do that, but now instead we allow staff to park for free on the premises. It can be very hard finding a parking space on the street around this area.
Yeah, I had trouble getting a spot when I came here today.
Yes, it's a busy area. I might just add that we pride ourselves on having a well-trained staff, so it's a good thing that you're doing your diploma.
Yes, it's been a very interesting course so far.
Good. Oh, one other thing, we also pay for medical insurance for all our employees as an extra incentive for working with us.
Oh, that's good.
And until recently, we provided one meal per shift as well, but that's been discontinued. Right. Well, I think that's all then. I'll give you a call later in the week and we can talk further.
Uh-huh. Well, thank you very much.
That is the end of part 1.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 2.
Timothy Curtin is an officer at the Department of Immigration. You will hear him talking to foreign students at a business college regarding visa regulations. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 and 12. Now listen and answer questions 11 and 12.
Good morning, everyone. My name's Timothy Curtin, and I work for the Department of Immigration. I've come along today to give you some information about visa regulations so as to make your stay here a bit easier. I'll be telling you about some of the rules for those on student visas and particularly about how to extend your visa. Now, I'm from the Atwood office of the Department of Immigration. At our office, we mainly process work visas. However, in the office where I used to work, I dealt mainly with student visas, which is why I was chosen to speak to you today. For other matters, such as residency applications or medical visas, you need to go to the Hampstead office of the department. For visas for people who are here on holidays, you can go to any office of the Department of Immigration. As you would know, there are certain conditions for people who hold student visas. For instance, if you move, you have to tell your college. The college then has to inform the department by mail, giving both your old and new address. You can change the college where you study, but you have to let the department know that you've enrolled with a new college. You're also allowed to work, but remember that the maximum you can work is 15 hours per week because you're here as full-time students, so your main focus has to be on studies. You can also take up to 3 weeks holidays between courses. If your marital status changes, you have to inform the department and provide us with a copy of the marriage certificate within a month of the wedding.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 13 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 13 to 20.
What I'd like to do now is go through the steps you have to follow when you want to extend your student visa, because a lot of students have to do that at some point while they're in this country. The first thing you have to do if you want to extend your visa is to pay for the next course you're planning to take. As you know, all courses have to be paid in advance. The course itself has to be of at least 4 months' duration, and you are advised to submit your visa application at least 2 months before the course is due to commence if possible. You need to keep a copy of the receipt of payment and send us the original. We advise that with all the documents you send us, that you keep photocopies for yourself, just in case any go missing. You'll also have to get a letter from the college you've been attending, which states your attendance record at that college. You already know that one of the requirements of a student visa is that you turn up to a minimum of 75% of your classes. If you've been absent for more than 25% of classes, you'll have to provide medical certificates stating that you were ill and unable to attend classes on those days. You then need to fill in a form to extend your student visa. That's Form 726C. You can obtain one by visiting any branch of our department, or else you can access it on the internet. At the end of my talk, I'll be handing out a brochure that gives our website address, as well as the addresses of department offices throughout the country. On top of that, you'll also need to be able to show that you have the means to support yourself while in this country. It's been estimated that the average student needs $15,000 a year to live on. And for that reason, you'll need to prove that you've got at least $6,000 in a bank account. It's got to be a bank account in this country, so $10,000 in a foreign account is of no use. Of course, your passport has to be still valid. And what else? Ah yes, then you'll need 3 passport photos. Make sure they're fairly recent photos. You then take all these documents and the form down to the immigration office, along with your passport. As you can see, there's quite a lot to do, so don't leave it till the last minute. You've got to lodge your application, along with all the documents, at least 3 weeks before the old visa expires. You have to pay for the visa application too, and that money's non-refundable. You can pay by cash, credit card or cheque. Oh, by the way, it'll cost you $325 to apply for an extension of your student visa. Wait, let me check that. Oh, that's right, it's gone up to $435. Then it'll take about a week to process your application. But we also have to make allowances for weekends and public holidays, and at times we have heavy workloads, so it may take as long as 12 working days before you get a reply. You might hear from us before that, but don't contact us before that period of time has passed. There may be a few things we need to ask you about before granting a visa, so there's a chance you'll be invited to an interview just so that we can check up on anything. But we'll let you know if we think that's necessary. Don't worry, if you can't remember all these things I've been talking about, they're all on Form 726C. Well, I think that's about enough from me. Now, do any of you have any questions?
That is the end of part 2.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 3.
You will hear two biology students called Helen and Colin talking about the report they are writing on their recent field trip to a seaside area called Rocky Bay. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
I've brought my notes on our biology field trip to Rocky Bay, Colin, so we can work on our report on the research we did together.
OK. I've got mine too. Let's look at the aims of the trip first.
Right. What did you have?
I just put something about getting experience of the different sorts of procedures used on a field trip. But we need something about what causes different organisms to choose particular habitats.
I agree. And something about finding out how to protect organisms in danger of dying out.
In our aims? But we weren't really looking at that.
I suppose not. OK, now there's the list of equipment we all had to bring on the field trip. What did they tell us to bring a ruler for?
It was something about measuring the slope of the shore. But of course we didn't need it because we were measuring wind direction and we'd brought the compass for that.
But not the piece of string to hold up in the air. Didn't Mr. Blake make a fuss about us leaving that behind?
Yeah, he does go on. Anyway, it was easy to get one from another of the students.
Now, the next section's the procedure. I sent you the draft of that.
Yeah, it was clear, but I don't think we need all these details of what time we left and what time we got back and how we divided up the different research tasks.
OK, I'll look at that again.
Then we have to describe our method of investigation in detail. So let's begin with how we measured wave speed. I was surprised how straightforward that was.
I'd expected us to have some sort of high-tech device, not just stand there and count the number of waves per minute. Not very precise, but I suppose it was good enough. But the way we measured the amount of salt was interesting.
In the water from the rock pools?
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to check the chemicals we used in the lab when we analysed those samples. Was it potassium chromate and silver nitrate?
That's right.
OK. And we need the map of the seashore. You just left that to me. And I had to do it while the tide was low. Well, that was OK, but the place I started it from was down on the beach. Then I realised I should have gone up higher to get better visibility, so I had to start all over again. But at least I'd got the squared paper, or I'd have had problems drawing it all to scale.
Yeah, it looks good. We could get a map of the region off the internet and see if we need to make any changes.
I had a look, but I couldn't find anything. But you took some pictures, didn't you?
Yeah, I'll email you them if you want.
OK. I'll make my amendments using those. Then I can scan it into our report. Great.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
Now, when we get to our findings, I thought we could divide them up into the different zones we identified on the shore and the problems organisms face in each zone. So for the highest area...
The splash zone?
Yeah, we found mostly those tiny shellfish that have strong hard shells that act as protection.
But not from other organisms that might eat them? Predators?
No, that's not the main danger for them, but the shells prevent them from drying out because they're in the open air for most of the time.
Right. And since they're exposed, they need to be able to find some sort of shelter or cover themselves up so they don't get too hot. Then in the middle and lower zones, nearer the sea, we need to discuss the effects of wave action.
Yes, and how organisms develop structures to prevent themselves from being swept away or even destroyed by being smashed against the rocks.
I haven't done anything on the geological changes. I don't know what to put for that.
No, we weren't concentrating on that. Maybe we need to find some websites.
Good idea. I've got the lecture notes from Mr. Blake's geology course, but they're too general. But we could ask him which books on our reading list might be most helpful.
Right. OK. Now, I did a draft of the section of sources of possible error in our research, but I don't know if you agree. For example, the size of the sample and whether it's big enough to make any general conclusions from. But I thought actually we did have quite a big sample.
We did. And our general method of observation seemed quite reliable. But we might not be all that accurate as far as the actual numbers go.
Yeah, we might have missed some organisms, if they were hiding under a rock, for example. I wasn't sure about the way we described their habitats. I decided it was probably OK.
Yeah, and the descriptions we gave of the smaller organisms, they weren't very detailed, but they were adequate in this context. I'm not sure we identified all the species correctly, though.
OK, we'd better mention that. Now,
That is the end of part 3.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Now turns to part 4.
You will hear part of a lecture to students of architecture about the design of a public building. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
We've been discussing the factors the architect has to consider when designing domestic buildings. I'm going to move on now to consider the design of public buildings, and I'll illustrate this by referring to the new Taylor Concert Hall that's recently been completed here in the city. So, as with a domestic building, when designing a public building, an architect needs to consider the function of the building. For example, is it to be used primarily for entertainment, or for education, or for administration? The second thing the architect needs to think about is the context of the building. This includes its physical location, obviously, but it also includes the social meaning of the building, how it relates to the people it's built for. And finally, for important public buildings, the architect may also be looking for a central symbolic idea on which to base the design, a sort of metaphor for the building and the way in which it is used. Let's look at the new Taylor Concert Hall in relation to these ideas. The location chosen was a site in a run-down district that has been ignored in previous redevelopment plans. It was occupied by a factory that has been empty for some years. The whole area was some distance from the high-rise office blocks of the central business district and shopping centre, but it was only 1 kilometre from the ring road. The site itself was bordered to the north by a canal which had once been used by boats bringing in raw materials when the area was used for manufacturing. The architect chosen for the project was Tom Harrison. He found the main design challenge was the location of the site in an area that had no neighbouring buildings of any importance. To reflect the fact that the significance of the building in this quite run-down location was as yet unknown, he decided to create a building centred around the idea of a mystery, something whose meaning still has to be discovered. So, how was this reflected in the design of the building? Well, Harrison decided to create pedestrian access to the building and to make use of the presence of water on the site. As people approach the entrance, they therefore have to cross over a bridge. He wanted to give people a feeling of suspense as they see the building first from a distance and then close up. And the initial impression he wanted to create from the shape of the building as a whole was that of a box. The first side that people see, the southern wall, is just a high, flat wall uninterrupted by any windows. This might sound off-putting, but it supports Harrison's concept of the building, that the person approaching is intrigued and wonders what will be inside. And this flat wall also has another purpose. At night time, projectors are switched on, and it functions as a huge screen onto which images are projected. The auditorium itself seats 1,500 people. The floors supported by 10 massive pads. These are constructed from rubber and so are able to absorb any vibrations from outside and prevent them from affecting the auditorium. The walls are made of several layers of honey-coloured wood, all sourced from local beech trees. In order to improve the acoustic properties of the auditorium and to amplify the sound, they are not straight, they are curved. The acoustics are also adjustable according to the size of orchestra and the type of music being played. In order to achieve this, there are 9 movable panels in the ceiling above the orchestra, which are all individually motorised. And the walls also have curtains which can be opened or closed to change the acoustics. The reaction of the public to the new building has generally been positive. However, the evaluation of some critics has been less enthusiastic. In spite of Harrison's efforts to use local materials, they criticise the style of the design as being international rather than local, and say it doesn't reflect features of the landscape or society for which it is built.
That is the end of part 4.
You now have half a minute to check your answers.
So guys, don't forget like, subscribe and share my YouTube channel and my Facebook page, IELTS updates and recent exams. For more updates related to recent IELTS exam writing test topics, listening, reading, practice test and speaking, you got guesswork. Please guys, participate in everyday new IELTS listening and reading practice tests to achieve your desired band score in your actual IELTS exam. For more IELTS material, visit my official website www.ieltsupdatesandrecentexams.com. The link is given below in the description. If you need PDF files of latest IELTS material, then please join my Telegram channel. So guys, please write your score below the comment section. Again, thanks for listening. God bless you all guys. Stay tuned, stay safe.